How's it going, guys? Welcome to episode 123 of Talk4 the Quickfire Podcast, where we ask 4 great questions to unique and interesting people. Behind the mic today is your host, Louis Skupien. That's me. Let me introduce our special guest for today, Phil De Ridder, who's going to be answering our questions today. So, Phil, how's it going today, man? Welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me, Louis.
Absolute pleasure. And I can't wait to get into this. AI. Wow, it's a deep subject, and it's only going to get deeper as the years go by now, or even the months. This thing's going it's going quick at 150 miles an hour. But just so we can kind of catch up with you and learn a little bit about who you are and what the kind of work you do is for people listening in who don't know who you are just yet. In kind of 30 to 60 seconds, roughly, elevator pitch, or you've just gone up to the bar, just met someone, you got a quick introduction to give. Just a little bit about who you are, what you do, and a quick snapshot intro into the life of you, just so we can kick this thing off.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Philip, I founded a company called BOI, through which I advise Fortune 500 executives on AI strategy, developing their vision and roadmap around it. Also founded a global summit called the Autonomous Innovation Summit, which gathers 10,000 people twice a year around all autonomous technologies enabled by AI. And then thirdly, I regularly author and deliver keynotes around the topics of AI and autonomous innovation more specifically. And apart from work, I've always been a huge fan of sci-fi, and in my work around innovation and AI, it's lovely to now see some of those future scenarios and sci-fi movies come to life as well.
That's amazing. So, before we get into those questions, would you say that you've got the dream job of your own, or did you have something else in mind as a kid, or is this exactly what you wanted to be doing?
Yeah, I guess I always wanted to invent new things, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now. So, yeah, absolutely. Love my
Brilliant
job.
stuff. Well, I think a great place to start with all of this then, because everything you're doing right now is just so impressive. But one of the best parts about entrepreneurial stories and people who invent things really is just where they come from, what that backstory looks like, and how all of that led to doing the incredible things you do today. Then, so give us kind of a bit of backstory then. So, where'd you come from? How did you get into this field? Was it really out of passion for sci-fi and movies that it all began? How did you start to monetize that? And just kind of give us a bit of a walkthrough of, young you to where you are now, I guess.
Yeah, so we started with BOI, me and my co-founder, about 15 years ago. And at that time, we were both super passionate. So we did develop out of a passion. We were both super passionate, especially about how technology was changing entire industries, how it was changing entire business models, which at the time was in the music industry, media industry, with the likes of iTunes, Spotify, Netflix coming up later, and that revolutionizing entire industries. So we kind of got thinking around that, developed some of our methodologies from back in the day on how to visualize those evolutions across industries, business models evolving. And we developed a website around that, which in 1 hour we called boardofinnovation.com, not intending that to be a company at that point in time, but it developed into one. So that started gaining traction. Started doing keynotes, workshops around that at companies, and then we rolled into it, set up our own company around it, and then we've basically organically grew from there. And right now we're a global company with offices in New York as well, and about 50% of the business is in US, the other one in Europe. And so very organically grew from us being passionate about inventing new things and leveraging emerging and exponential technologies for new innovations.
Right. So when you started getting into all this, was AI even a thing then? How long has this all been around for? Because at least from what I've seen, AI has been, as you kind of said, it's been a movie thing for quite a bit of time now. And then for me, at least, AI started, or it feels like it started when ChatGPT came onto the scene. I remember I did a podcast with someone, and the guy actually said to me at the end of it, he said, "Hey, I've got a secret for you. Don't tell anyone about this, but there's this thing called ChatGPT, and it's going to be huge in a couple of months." Well, he was right. So when did you start to get involved in all of this, and when did you see all this starting to emerge?
Yeah, great point. And I think it even took people at OpenAI by surprise that it was such a success, because they launched it basically more as an experiment a year and a half ago. about or so. And so obviously AI has been around for the last couple of decades in development, first in research labs, and then more and more in business applications. I think what we've seen in the last year and a half has primarily been a combination of two evolutions. On the one hand, it's been a huge UX revolution by means that it made the technology available to every one of us on a daily basis for free or just for $20 per month. So it made it accessible, and as such went mainstream. But then obviously at the same time, the technology in itself evolved quite rapidly as well. Only last week we've seen the new OpenAI model being launched, now hitting an IQ of 120, which is a vast evolution from where it was only a couple of weeks and months before that. So it's both been a technology acceleration over the past year, as well as a UX and accessibility evolution, making the technology available to everyone.
Yeah, wow, it's really interesting how this has all progressed, and it seems to be doing it very quickly too. I remember all these ChatGPT models coming out, and it seems like 3.0 was just a week ago, and now it's 4.0 and everything above that. But so things looking kind of looking at your website, looking at the stuff on your pages and things, one of the things that really I see floating around a lot is autonomous innovation. And I guess I'm using AI a lot at the moment. I use it to help in tasks, so writing blog posts or helping change descriptions, or the kind of tedious long tasks in YouTube where you can give it a description I've already made by hand and saying, hey, can you change this for this one or this variation of this, or hey, can you help me write this about us page for the website. So at least my understanding of it right now is it's kind of a task filler, and I'm using sometimes things like Opus Clip to help me with the YouTube short clips. But at least my understanding is that where it feels like it is right now for me is it's a task filler, and it needs a person behind it to kind of help the thing along. What is autonomous innovation? Is it here now? And how does it look in kind of transforming innovation into a self-sustaining process? Where is it right now?
Yeah, I'll get into it in a minute. Maybe taking one step back of, I think, where we are is exactly what you're describing, is that people use the new technology to do what they've always done, but faster and more effective, and sometimes cheaper as well, as a consequence of that. And that's what we call, or what I call, wave one of a technology evolution. A new technology comes up and we use it to do what we've always done, but faster. And then we'll start seeing wave two, which is the real transformation, which will lead to entirely new ways of doing things. And we've seen that with all previous technologies as well. With electricity coming up, it took over a decade for factory plants to be redesigned in an electricity first way, if you want. Obviously, it won't take a decade now with AI. But so to get to autonomous innovation, that's our articulation and vision of where we're going with innovation and new product development in that second wave of really transforming the system and the way of working. And I'll make that a bit more tangible. So what is innovation concretely? It's typically the development or the imagination, the development and the launch of new products or services. Think about new drugs, new food and beverage products that you buy, new music songs, or new software systems, whatever it is, depending on the industry. And typically, like, that's a 12-month plus process in any given organization. You take insights from what consumers might need next. You start generating ideas, you prototype them, you do small consumer tests with them, etc., etc. And depending on the industry, you're 12 months plus. So what autonomous innovation engines do is basically take on that process through AI agents working together, at the moment still with human oversight and human in the loop, but that basically bring back that 12 months process to just a couple of minutes or days, where it runs through that insights gathering, ideation. It would generate hundreds, thousands of ideas for the next big product. It would test it against AI modeled consumer panels. It would design, prototype them, etc., etc. So that's what it does practically. Is it fully autonomous already? No. So that's the articulation and the vision aspect. I would say it's probably going to be there in, let's say, 2 years from now, would be my best guess. And we've identified 5 levels from a human-only way of working to a fully autonomous way of working. And I would say we're currently midway in an AI-powered, sometimes semi-autonomous way. And it's also the wave that we see right now with AI agents, agentic workflows being all the hype. So it's at that level where agents become more independent, start to self-learn, self-evolve, and that all fits in that wider vision of autonomous innovation.
Right. My understanding is that AI is, at least right now, the GPT models, from what's been explained to me by some other people, is that it's based and it's learned off of a massive data source. So it takes data that's out there already and it basically learns from that, and it takes pieces of it. So it kind of constructs from what it has already. So I guess the thing that's cropping in my head that I'd love you to kind of go into a bit is, how can AI innovate something new when it's based on models of data that already exist? How does that work? I'm just really interested.
Yeah, you're not alone. Like, it's a common argument that we hear. And two perspectives to offer to that. One is evidence, the other one is more philosophical, if you want, and maybe starting off with that. So we're always talking about how AI models build on already existing knowledge, and hence it can't create something new. Now, if you look at human creativity, it's shown that us as humans, that we also build a lot on previous knowledge, stuff that we've read elsewhere. Think about academic research. It's always built on prior research and then taking that to the next level, or combining three things. Think about music or any artist-like creations. They will typically be built on previous inspirations, etc. So it's actually not unlike a human process, and maybe sometimes we overestimate how new our own creativities versus 90% being built on inspiration and background knowledge from elsewhere. So I think that's the first perspective to take into account. And then the second one is just pure evidence. So some of the AI engines that we've been building, when we've tested the product concepts that come out of those, and we've had independent scientific research around it confirming the same, is that the product concepts are rated at least as high or higher on purchase intent. So when you ask people, would you buy this product, and you give them a blinded test of 10 AI generated product concepts versus 10 bestsellers in the portfolio, they score at least as high or higher on a variety of indicators such as purchase intent, but also creativity and novelness.
It's really, really interesting. And I think it's one of those ones where I just feel like it's moving so fast, it's hard to keep up with it sometimes. But I guess, what do you think? Because I think if there's anything I've noticed, is that when these trends and stuff, they come around, I know AI is here to stay, but when new things come onto the scene, there's so many new people jumping onto it,
Yeah.
and there's so many dangers that come with it too. So I guess, what are the things that you think are most exciting about it that people need to look out for and jump onto early with it? And what are the kind of things that you think are maybe a bit gimmicky, or a little bit more kind of commercial, that don't really serve much benefit, or things to watch out for? So kind of, what are the key highlights for businesses and people to get in on early, and what are the things to watch out for?
As a general perspective, I would say it's difficult to overestimate the long-term impact and transformation of AI. So I think any investment and opportunity to learn, also on a very individual level, I would strongly encourage. Obviously, it won't be just a linear trend line upwards or an exponential trend line. It will definitely go in like your typical boom and bust cycle. We've seen the same with the dot-com boom. Let's say that the digital last 2 decades, or digital transformation, is our best point of comparison of what's now gonna come and be with AI transformation. And we've had the dot-com boom in the 2000s, and all of the headlines would be that the internet boom bursted, etc. But if you look at it 2 decades later, right now we're all shopping through digital interfaces, we're interacting digitally, we're playing digital games, and everything or a lot of things have become digital. So it's not because things go up and down. The longer term trend line is definitely going to strongly trend upwards. And I think, so I wouldn't be disillusioned too soon when there's a setback or when some companies or some people start pulling back on AI investments. The longer term trend line is, or at least I believe, will be strongly upwards.
Okay, cool. And who do you think, in terms of like the companies that are doing this, at least when I think of AI, I think typically, yeah, I'm pretty new to the whole thing, but I guess I think OpenAI. Who do you think are the best companies that are pushing this thing forward, that have the best ethics and the best, best product right now, that we need to keep an eye on and at least keep tabs on into that near future, where we can start to look into applying this stuff into business and, into our lives?
Well, there's different layers to what the AI world is. So, for example, if we think about foundational models, large language models that I guess by now most people have experimented with. So that would be OpenAI with ChatGPT. That would be Claude from Anthropic. That would be Gemini from Google. And within those, obviously, you have some, for example, specifically Claude, that lean more into the safety aspects, the responsible AI, the ethical AI. Not that others don't, but you have some that take a stronger stance on that spectrum. So if that's something of importance to you as an individual, then obviously you could make your choice between those models. So those are the foundational models that now we all use directly. And then you will have consumer products that basically leverage those foundational models and deliver them to us in a even more user-friendly interface, which could be your next AI shopping assistant that would do part of the shopping for you. If you want to order a new mic for your next podcast episode, and it would give you like the top 3, knowing your preferences, etc. So those would be probably consumer products that are built on top of the foundational models, but leverage them underneath. So there's 2 layers if you want. Well, there's obviously more layers if you look at the infrastructure, the cloud computing, NVIDIA, the chips, etc. But let's say that as a consumer, you can ignore that part. And we will start seeing a lot more consumer products going forward. And obviously the likes of Apple, who just launched part of their Apple Intelligence in their new iPhone, will make the foundational models available in even more user-friendly ways for all of us.
Quick ad break here, guys. Just want to introduce you to Shopify. Shopify is the all-in-one e-commerce platform that runs basically everything I'm doing, from my personal website to my business websites. It truly is a phenomenal system, and I have a way for you guys to get started today for just £1 building your business, whether that's personal brand, whether that's e-commerce, whether that's a blog. It has everything. It has its own app store that can get you basically every feature you could expect from an online store, and it really just works out of a fantastic all-in-one system, which I can only highly recommend enough. And you guys can start for just £1 today. It's an incredible offer. Absolutely amazing. And the link to that is in the bio, or I'll put it up in the tab at the top. I think it'll be top right at the screen for you guys right now. So yeah, guys, check it out. Make sure to get this offer and yeah, get started. It's fantastic. Yeah, it's interesting. I saw about the Apple Intelligence thing, and I wasn't entirely sure what it was just yet. But I was in the car a couple of days ago, and I asked Siri to do something, and I don't know if you've ever tried to use Siri in an older iPhone, but yeah, it doesn't have a clue unless it's got an internet connection, and you literally spell it out for you. But I was just thinking, wow, if I had AI as my ChatGPT as my Siri, my God, I could learn so much while I'm driving this car, or I could get so much done, or I could do so much for me while I'm doing this. And Is that what Apple Intelligence is then? What do you think about it? How far, because Apple feels like they're a bit of an innovation leader in terms of bringing stuff out, and the AirTag, that was something pretty new and exciting and innovating. But what they've just brought out now, what do you think about it? How kind of good is it, I guess?
Yeah, to tap into your story on Syria, I think we've all universally had similar experiences, is that we tried it out once and then never touched it before, barring maybe some exceptions. But so that was, in general, a huge flop and disappointment for most of us. I think Apple Intelligence will now indeed leverage foundational models, make them available. Definitely part of the vision is that would become our always-on AI assistant that helps us in any type of situation. Right now, the first step, I would say, is very much what Apple always does well, is hitting or delivering the technology, which is already highly performant for a mainstream audience. We've seen some other experiments in the last year in terms of fit for purpose built new consumer tech, for example, with the humane AI pin with the Rabbit R1. So these were new consumer devices that proclaimed to be the next AI assistant. I think they've largely failed for now. Beautiful vision, but didn't deliver on something that's technically feasible. I think Apple is taking deliberate steps to meet people and technology where they are, and will be more successful. In a way, the promise is lower than the others, but if they just deliver on what they promise, I think they will end up in a better place. And overall, they've been interesting to follow because they've been the only company actually not really talking about AI of all the big tech companies. And that's very much on brand, if you want, because they've always communicated about stuff that adds value to us rather than the underlying technology. So they're not talking about AI too much, but more about what it does for us and for them to deliver a better product to us, which I think is a powerful strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good way of putting it. I mean, it's exciting. It seems like these companies are coming out with innovations now, and you've got a lot of people working on this. When you have a lot of people working on it and there's a lot of money in it, definitely innovation seems to strive. And something I've seen you talk about on your website and the pages that you have is a future back strategy and approach to strategy development and how it differs to others. And I felt like it has similarity to something I thought a while ago of how do I plan my life? Where do I want to be in 5 years? Let's break down the steps back from that, and then I can figure out what a path forward looks like. So I guess, can you just explain what your future back strategy and that approach looks like to you, and how do you sort of even construct something like that where you have something so rapidly evolving like AI? Like, where do you see it going in the next 5-10 years?
Yeah, I think it's a super important point in how to think about AI and what type of strategy or approach to develop around it. Where you can compare two approaches, a present forward approach or a future back approach. So I guess the terms are kind of self-explanatory, but if you start from a present forward approach, you start from your current way of working and you plan ahead, or you start doing those things with AI. Whereas a future back approach starts from, let's think 5 years out, where will AI technologies be at that point in time? Where will our world be in terms of how our society is organized around it? How consumers, how will we all behave differently in terms of, for example, our shopping behavior? And then if you're a company or an individual thinking against that framework, what will my role be in that 5 years out future vision? And then thinking back, so future back, what needs to be true for us to achieve that role and that view on the future? And it leads you to bigger and more transformational ideas than a present forward approach. A present forward approach typically leads to incremental thinking, which isn't entirely bad. Like you get to incremental gains, but you will miss out on spotting the opportunity for a big transformational move.
I like it. Talking about big transformational moves then, so people, businesses and stuff listening in right now, I guess, what are some of those key strategies then for integrating AI into your business model? And I think something you talk about there as well is just not making it just incremental improvements, but how do you see this happening for full transformations in businesses and their models? Talk to me a bit about that. How do we get started with it? What the things to look out for, and where would you begin as a business to integrate this with the sight of full transformation and autonomous innovation, you know?
Yeah, and there's a lot to unpack here. So a couple of high-level perspectives. So the first one already shared, starting with the future back approach, starting with that future vision, thinking back, thinking through the lens of autonomization versus automation. So there's been obviously a lot of talk about automation, which is more of a mechanical view on things and programming software in an if this then that type of approach. If the weather drops below this temperature, then do that. If our numbers plummet below this threshold, then do that. If we're thinking about autonomous systems, it's a completely different mindset and way of organizing around it, because you're basically building and nurturing systems that would be able to decide and operate more independently and become self-learning. So that's a second really important perspective from my side. And then maybe thirdly, not thinking through the lens of just technology. A lot of investment these days are in proof of concepts, building the new tech, but also very much thinking about how should we evolve the operating model and the whole organization around it. If we build a new tech that can generate, for example, a new fashion collection in just a couple of minutes rather than 12 months, how should we evolve our organization around it? How we as humans interact with that system to make the most of it? Because if we continue to work in the old ways of working, then the new technology actually won't really deliver anything either. And I think that's a common pitfall, and also what happened in the previous 2 decades of everything becoming digital, is that there's too much focus on the technology as such, and then it falls short because people don't adopt it, don't work with it in future forward ways. So thinking through the lens of both the technology, but especially also through the lens of human behavior around it.
So how do we do that then? If you've got an organization of people who are, you know, dinosaurs, or they don't want to know about this kind of a thing, or they don't understand it, you know, how do you get an organization on board of this and not make it a flop? How do you make it a success, in your opinion?
Well, a couple of thoughts on that. First of all, making it a very integral part of the plan that you develop, so that you don't overlook that and make it as important compared to the technology development. Secondly, bringing people on board with the vision. For example, Moderna, one of the leaders in the COVID vaccines from a couple of years ago, has been very vocal and future forward with their CEO, really delivering a vision around it externally to the markets, but also internally within the company, for people to buy into that vision, so people understand why we're doing this. If you just communicate about what people need to do or how they need to change it without understanding the why behind it, it's proven that it's just less successful. And then obviously, as part of that investment, as a third element, is working directly with people and giving them the tools and mindsets to be successful in that new situation. So that would be awareness campaigns, that would be actual trainings on the job, etc., etc. So that would be a couple of high-level thoughts on how to be successful at that human behavior transformation element.
Yeah. And when does that go too far then? So how do you kind of, I guess the question really is, with all this coming out, all this excitement, a lot of people jumping on it and a lot of things happening, when does this side of things, when does the technology, when does the AI become too much in terms of integrating into your business. So how do you kind of maintain a human-centered approach to this sort of a thing? And why is the balance between human-centered and AI integration so critical for businesses moving forward? And when would you kind of say it's too much AI? We need more human thought behind this process?
Well, time will tell on that. So we don't necessarily fully know where we'll end up in a couple of years, and I don't think even the likes of Sam Altman fully know. For us, or for me, like there's a clear point on the horizon that I would love humans to be the heroes in this story, and I could also see it go the other way. So I think it's a deliberate choice that we have to make humans the hero in the story, in the AI systems that we create, that we shape, rather than us becoming the slaves of the AI system, which is not an unlikely possibility in my mind. So I think it will be a combination of us all making deliberate decisions on the systems that we design, rather than it happening by default.
Why don't you think that's an unlikely possibility then? And what kind of a world does that look like in your head where, we're slaves to that? What does it look like to you?
Yeah, maybe that's a bit of a hard statement around it, but I guess it makes it clear, and I definitely don't want to portray like a doom and gloom scenario. But if you ask me how that might look like, and what the systems are that might lead us there, I think on one element, our whole economy and society is organized by continuously striving for progress, for growth, and for more profit. In a way, that's how stock markets operate. That's how governments are always looking for GDP growth. That's how any individual company looks for growth and margin optimization. So I think you have a lot of drivers in place that will push for AI to be largely adopted and potentially replace more costly human labor through technology. That's an evolution that in part has already happened. So the key question will be, is it like previous technology evolutions where we were also scared about job loss and huge unemployment scenarios that obviously never happened throughout history? Will it be the same? Or is this one of a kind and different? I think there are arguments for both ways, but there is a potential scenario where there aren't enough new jobs that we could get into while old jobs are being replaced, because obviously AI is a bit of a unique and one-of-a-kind technology. And for any company or any business leader, there will be an important decision to make. Let's assume that right now you could generate your output with 100 people, whatever business you're in, or with X amount of people. And that through working with AI agents, you will soon be able to deliver the same output, the same amount of podcasts, the same amount of cars you produce, the same amount of movies you put out there with just 10 people instead of 100. You have the choice in front of you. Do we go for doing it with 10 people, way more cost effective and delivering the same output? Or do we keep 100 people, but do we 10x our output? Do we produce 10 times as much as we did before, or somewhere in between? That will be a decision that any leader out there will have to make at some point.
Yeah, I completely get what you mean. Something I'm quite interested in, as you can probably see from the wall, is aviation. And a few of the people who I spoke to, one of them's driving basically innovation within aviation in the military in the USA, and he was a director of AI integration into the Air Force. And yeah, he was talking about how the F-35, which is the fifth generation fighter jets, how they might look with AI in the near future. And I kind of asked the questions of, do you think there's always going to be a pilot in the seat, or do you think it's going to be AI driven? And they all seem to be answering the same way and saying that they think there will always be a pilot in the seat, but there will be kind of wingmen around the jet, AI driven drones and stuff that assist the pilot. And it kind of sounds a bit like that's going to be the same in organizations too, where you have human centered, but you have a lot of the assistance and that kind of labor intensive stuff managed and kind of brought into a bit of a crunch by AI. But do you think that's ever not going to be the case? Do you see AI being the boss or the leader of organizations and stuff? And if that was the case, would that be bad? What do you think?
Yeah, to your story about flying and fighter jets, I think in general, obviously, the nice story to tell is that AI will just take over our cumbersome tasks, so we have more time for creativity, for the real strategic decision making. I'm not sure if that's entirely the in line with the trend line that I observe. I have little validation to say that that is by default the scenario of what will happen. I could see different possibilities, and I think it's potentially too soon to tell where it will end up. In terms of the fighter jets, obviously we've already seen a huge growth in autonomous drones or drones that are steered from a distance and more autonomous warfare in that sense, if you look at conflicts that are happening right now in the world. So I think if you were to plot that on a trend line, it would probably, and I'm not an expert in warfare by any means, but I would suspect that that leads to a trend line that actually gets to autonomous flying. The same way as what we're seeing right now with autonomous driving as well. I think Waymo in San Francisco is already at 5% of all the taxi rides, and it's growing exponentially. And typically 5% is seen as the threshold to go from a niche to mainstream. So that's typically a threshold for further uptick. And it's obviously been a decade of promises around it, but I think we're finally at the moment of an increase there. So I wouldn't be too sure that we're gonna live in the ideal scenario where we're all enjoying like the most creative strategic work, and then AI just does all the admin and all of the cumbersome work. I would hope it for all of us, but it could also be a dream not coming true.
Yeah, it's true. And I guess it's one of those ones time will tell and we'll know. And probably, I think people we're used to have said 5-10 years. I think we'll probably know in probably a couple of years at this point now. Do you think that'll be the case? How quick is this thing moving? What's it going to look like in a couple of years from now, do you think?
I think it's going to be, well, 5 years is a long time if you look at how fast the technology has developed in the last year. Obviously, there's a difference between the speed of technology development. So I think the technology development will actually go really fast over the next 5 years. But then there's a different speed in terms of how fast companies adopt and transform to it, how fast people, consumers adopt and transform around it. So that will put a delay on like the productization of the technology and the usage of the technology. But in 5 years from now, I would expect there to be almost fully autonomous businesses. I don't think that's going to be the majority, but obviously it's a race at the moment for some people wanting to build like the first one-person billion unicorn type company. I think we will have seen that by then. But that won't be fully mainstream just yet.
Okay, cool. Makes sense to me. And I think the last thing to go off here then really is just in terms of businesses listening in, people listening in who want to take something away from here. We always love to have a bit of actionable stuff that people can go and apply straight out of the podcast and really go and, like I said, just take away from here and then go and, shoot forwards and make something happen with the information. So I guess what are some of the kind of practical examples of how a business today can use AI to gain a competitive edge and reshape their industries essentially? Is it just chat GPT still, or are there other things that we need to be getting on top of now and we can go and leave this podcast and say, okay, let's go and apply this? And how do we do that?
I think it's a really interesting thought exercise to think about, like, how do I evolve towards more autonomous business, autonomous workflows, etc. I think the best starting point, referring to what I said earlier, is to start with that AI visioning exercise. Like, where is it going to go? What role do I take in that? And then what needs to be true in order to be successful at that. At BOI, we've always helped very strongly to an open source culture as well. So all of the methodologies, etc., that we have, we open source them on the website as well. So we have a couple of strategy frameworks that you could think through, workshop through, that are freely available to anyone. So anyone that's interested can find them on boardofinnovation.com. And then secondly, as I mentioned earlier, we're organizing this Autonomous Innovation Summit twice a year, bringing together over 10,000 people each time. And we have 50 plus thought leaders from OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, and all of the AI pioneers that we bring together. And that's also available for free. So as part of that same open sourcing idea around knowledge and inspiration. So if people want to look for more, they're more than welcome on our next edition, January 28, 29 of next year.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. And I mean, that leads perfectly through to the shameless plug. I mean, we've gone through the 4 questions today, but before we wrap it up, it's a great time to share where we can find all this then. So yeah, Phil, take a minute and send us through to websites where we can book in for this, any social media, and anything that you believe in that you want people to go take a look at as well. Just, link away, tell us where to go with all of our stuff.
Yeah, there's one book that I would love to recommend, as we talked a lot about like what future are we creating here and what are the possibilities, some which are nicer to all of us and some which are potentially less enjoyable for all of us. So I would recommend The Coming Wave by one of the founders of DeepMind, so one of the AI thought leaders, that talks about the narrow path that we have to getting this right. So I think anyone that gets involved into AI, I think it gives such a good grounding on how to get out on the right side of this. And then secondly, the ones that I just mentioned, so on boardofinnovation.com, people can find all of the tools and frameworks to use for free. And then the autonomousinnovationsummit.com would get you to the summit, which you can also join for free to learn more from 50 plus thought leaders in the space.
Brilliant. Is the summit in person or is it online? How does it work?
It's virtual, so everyone can join from anywhere in the world, and then we have offline, face-to-face side events if you want, for example, in New York. But so anywhere you are, you're free to join virtually.
Brilliant. I will be there, my friend. Thank you. This has been a fantastic
Awesome.
talk. It's absolute pleasure to talk to you on the Talk4 podcast today. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of this stuff come out. Very last question we have for today, new show tradition, is if you had a little moment to speak to a young you, 12, 13 years old, running around the streets, whatever, you could whisper something in his ear. What would you say to him? What would be your little kind of 1 minute of wisdom, if you will, to a young version of you?
I would say, and maybe to stay in light of the whole AI movement, is to really be very adaptable, to learn as much as you can. And I think adaptability and learning agility will really be the core competences of the future. And I guess apart from that, it would be to enjoy life as much as you can, and don't worry too much about what others think of you or what could go wrong. I think that's something that you learn by getting older as well, and really leads to just being happier in life as well. So that would be my 2 recommendations if you want.
I love it. Thanks, Phil. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today. And what an honor, and can't wait to see more of what you get up to.
It was so nice to be here. Thank you, Louis.
You're so welcome. And thank you guys for listening in. This was episode 123. If you'd like to listen to the past episodes, go and have a look at our channel. And if you'd like to listen in for the future ones too, make sure to hit the subscribe button and spread some love by leaving a like and a comment. Signing off for now. See you in the next episode. Cheers.